Welcome back. It's 8:14 right now. So as we get further and further away from the onset of the pandemic, remote employees may be asked to work from the office. In fact, a recent report from Castle Systems said for the first time since early 2020, offices in 10 major cities were more than halfway filled. But that could pose a big problem for workers who accepted the job based on the fact that it was going to be remote, right? So Washington Post columnist Karla Miller tackling that dilemma for us in a new piece. She's joining us live this morning. Karla, good morning.
Good morning, Liz. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. So start out by telling us exactly what you're seeing when it comes to these employers kind of backing off these work-from-home agreements. Is this really that widespread?
It's hard to tell how widespread it is, but a lot of employers are starting to pull workers back in the office since last year, and especially around Labor Day. That was sort of a soft deadline where a lot of employers were saying, okay, you've worked from home during the pandemic, but we want you back in the office 2, 3, maybe 5 days a week. So there's been this constant push and pull with employers. But just even recently, I received a letter from a reader whose employer advertised itself as remote first, but then a few months later backpedaled and said, no, we need everybody in the office at least 3 days a week.
Yeah, we just did a story recently about Starbucks actually in our own backyard saying the corporate workers had to go back to work at least a few times per week. We're hearing it with Amazon as well in certain cases. I mean, if someone takes a job based on the fact that the work is remote and then they say you got to go to the office, is this bait and switch legal?
That's hard to say. Technically, in an at-will employment state, an employer can change the terms of your employment, and it is kind of, like it or lump it. If you can't accept those terms, you can try to push back and negotiate, but ultimately, it feels in a lot of these cases, it feels like the employer is basically daring the employees to quit rather than come into the office. So it's sort of a big game of chicken.
It certainly feels that way. I know during the pandemic and, sort of in the following months, we heard a lot of people talk about how the workers had more rights and they were, quitting and moving on to bigger. And now it seems like with layoffs, the roles are sort of reversing in a way. Does it feel like employers have more power in this regard?
It does feel like they're trying to assert more power in this regard, but a number of these employers that have tried to impose strict return to work policies have had to walk those policies back a little bit because employees are pushing back or unions are pushing back or people are threatening to walk. So some employers have sort of softened their return to office mandates and said, okay, well, if your manager says that you're getting as much done at home as you would be in the office, I guess that's okay. Or if you can make a case that you need to be home for the nature of your work or because you have some kind of disability or other extenuating circumstance, then you can work from home.
Yeah, okay. That was my next question, actually, if certain workers have protections or workers' rights when it comes to that. But when we talk a little bit about working from home, I mean, you're hearing from readers and as you're telling these stories, are you aware of any specific companies regarding these issues?
Well, I know that the company that I was referring to that walked it back and had managers vouch for employees, that was at Twitter. Twitter had a strict, come back to the office, no questions asked, but then workers pushed back and the CEO said, well, okay, if your manager will vouch for you and put their neck on the line for you, then yes, you can continue working from home. Microsoft, Apple, Google, all of these tech companies, they've all tried to impose return to office policies, and some of them have had to soften them a bit. But we've also seen some layoffs in these companies recently and in the tech sector in general. So it's a question whether is it necessary? Are these layoffs necessary? Or is this maybe companies trying to assert some kind of control and say, no, we're going to draw the line here and you have to toe it or find work elsewhere?
Wow, that is an interesting perspective. I didn't think about that because, yeah, we have seen thousands of layoffs in the tech industry recently. Karla Miller, this is fascinating. We'll be tracking this with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you. Okay, so